We did $100 million in sales and built the largest NLP training company. At one point, I had a business partner that said, I need you to sign these documents for this. And I trusted him and didn't read the documents, and they gave the company away. I went from millions to penniless overnight. So I made lots of mistakes. Felt like I had lost 10 years of my life. But now with the AI, it's like I have an opportunity to remake the business. I don't have to do it the way that I did. Now I see something that I'm super excited about. Here's my opportunity. This is going to be huge. This is going to change the world.
Hi, hello, and welcome to the new episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast. Today in my studio, as always, a very interesting guest for you. A person who's been through a lot in his life, who at some point built the biggest NLP company in the world, making crazy amount of money and impacting lives of thousands of people, and then lost it all. And now building everything from scratch again. So I guess from this person, you can learn lots of important lessons. And some of the insights that he will share with us today will become your shortcuts to lead you from where you are to where you want to be. I think it was an amazing presentation, right?
That was an incredible presentation.
I'm making it better and better every time. Hello, Chris. Nice to see you here. I'm very happy to have you here today. And we'll begin as always with my most favorite question. Who are you? Tell us who you are from the perspective of who you've been before and who you are right now.
All right. It's funny because I've always hesitated putting even a job title to what I do, because we're so exponential in terms of reach and everything that we do energetically, and I don't know how to quantify that. But so who I was before,
Yes.
You're asking? Before I had a crash, right? Is that what we're talking about? I was someone who was very mission driven. I was, excited to change the world. And I got into accelerating human change and those types of technologies because I thought that if I could help other people to change their life, I'd be able to change my life and make it everything I wanted it to be. And we had great success. We did $100 million in sales and built the largest NLP training company, as you said. So we had some really great success on that. There were some issues that I had along the way. I dealt with crippling anxiety, and I pushed myself further than one should. And I didn't know, and I was very naive too, starting a business, because it was the first business that I had really done that succeeded at a large level. So I was naive. I didn't I trusted too readily certain people. I made mistakes along the way, and that's, ultimately I couldn't handle what I had built up, and so it came crashing down. And that was tough. That I went through a very tough period of time. Now, after having gone through that, I'm the same person at my heart, at my core. I'm still mission driven. I'm very spiritual from my, not from a religious perspective, but in terms of a talking to God perspective all the time and asking God to make me a vessel. That's what I've always done. That's always been my strategy for speaking, and to flow through me and to have great results flow through me. Now I'm more humble after that. I'm more grounded at the same time. I know I've got even greater resilience. I questioned that for a long time. I thought that I had lost the resilience I always had, but now I realize now I have even greater resilience because I made it through some heavy stuff. But now, I'm loving life. I'm here in Bali, which there's no place I'd rather be. I'm building a new expression of our technologies with AI infused into it to facilitate even faster change, more rapid change for people, and more rapid transformation. And so I'm super excited about all that.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's my favorite kind of stories. The circle of the hero. The hero wants to change the world, that he meets with some obstacles, he fights so hard, he makes an impact, and then he crashes, so he needs to raise from the ashes once again.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's like, when I crashed so hard that I thought that I wasn't going to get back up. And that's, I always prided myself on never quitting. I've been a martial artist all my life. It's just been kind of my philosophy, that warrior spirit, you keep your spirit high. But I hit a point where it was like, no, I just stopped and I just quit. And I quit working. I quit paying attention to anything. I just wanted to take care of myself. And that was the most important thing to do at that point in time so that I could rise.
Let's go into details of that part of your life. So put me into the context of who you were on the point when you started to build your first successful business. And let's go to the details also. What is actually NLP? What does it do for people? How you build a company around it? With what purpose you build it?
So I got inspired, I got inspired for personal development pretty early. Like I was doing personal development since the time I was a kid. I mean, I was reading books on astral projection and going through audio programs to program my mind for lucid dreaming and stuff when I was 7 years old, 8 years old. Yeah,
Wow.
I just loved this stuff, and I was involved in martial arts from the time I was 10. Um, also at 10 started took transcendental meditation. So my parents were putting me into things that they thought could help me because I had some mixed emotions from my parents' divorce. So my stepfather was helping me to get into these, different types of things that they thought might help to navigate me through that situation. The cool thing is I mean, they put me in a class for clinical hypnosis when I was 10 years old to learn hypnosis. And so, it comes full circle because later on in life, I ended up teaching and teaching around the world and that sort of thing. So when I was building, I got inspired to come into personal development. I read some books. I read Think and Grow Rich. I listened to Tony Robbins' Personal Power Set. And I was like, I can do this. I can change my life. I can turn things around. And it wasn't even turning things around so much as making my dreams come true, because I had all these dreams, but I was so far away from them.
Just a dream.
Well, it was to be a speaker that spoke to hundreds of thousands of people around the world, and to speak. At the time, the dream was only to speak not around the world; it was throughout the United States. I wasn't thinking that big yet, right? but that was the dream, was to speak throughout the United States. I had to, I set a goal that I was going to make $1 million in a year. Didn't even come close. It wasn't until 6 years later that we surpassed it, and I didn't even realize when we did, because we did 3 million that year. So, I was driven, just like it's almost like a divine drive, like it's a divinely guided drive, because I really, really believe in listening to your heart. And so I was listening to my heart and adjusting along the way. And I took on the attitude that if I became the best in the world, there'd always be a market for me. And so I focused on building my skills and my skill sets, and really built some solid skill sets in NLP, hypnosis, teaching hypnosis. And what is NLP? NLP is like conscious mind hypnosis, right? So in hypnosis, we say sit back, relax, go into a trance. With NLP, we might just say, I wonder if you can imagine yourself behaving delightfully in new ways that bring, so we might use our language in a way that transports someone's imagination to someplace else. I wonder if you can imagine the joy that you get from eating fresh, healthy vegetables that satiate your hunger in every way. If we're dealing with somebody who's looking for weight loss or something like that, we can transport people's imaginations with our language, and other means too. There's lots of different tools in NLP. Essentially, it's a hybrid science that was created. It wasn't even created; it was compiled by two guys in the 60s, and they went out and they looked for 60s and 70s. They went out and they looked for how therapists produce change in a therapeutic environment, when that change was created, and how could we replicate that change without having to go through years of therapy. And so originally, it was just a bunch of tools that people would use for rapid transformation, rapid therapy. A lot of my clients in the early days when I was teaching were psychologists, psychiatrists, medical doctors, coaches, consultants, therapists, people that wanted to make change with people quickly. The business really opened up when we started marketing more to entrepreneurs and saying, hey, come in and learn these tools to help you transform and make your life everything that you want it to be. And so that really took off. That's where we went from hundreds in the room to thousands in the room. And we had like 2,000, 3,000 people every weekend for a good several years run, and different places all over the world. So I was traveling all over the planet to all the places I've ever wanted to see. So it's been really a blessing from that perspective.
What I'm very curious is, how does it feel to build a business around your purpose? Like when you feel that this is your calling, this is something, as I understood from your speeches, that you felt like you've been driven by maybe God's will,
Yeah.
or something inside of you that really wanted to make it happen. So how does it feel emotionally, mentally?
Oh,
Is
it
there
feels
some
amazing.
additional pressure maybe?
No, it feels amazing, because if you're listening to that voice within, my friend, Dr. Reverend Michael Beckwith, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he says that, your heart's desire and God's will are one and the same. Um, the original meaning of the word desire comes from it was originally desidere, which was the meaning of the stars or coming from the stars. But Michael likes to play a word game with it. He's like, well, de means of in French, or of in French. Sire is a term that we give to royalty or a father type. So your heart's desire and God's will are one and the same. And I believe that, and I've taken that to heart. Really taken that to heart, and it's probably the biggest message that I've looked to share with people, is that when you follow that path, then all the things that we worry about, the fears of will I make it, can disappear because you're on the path and you're making it already. There's not some place to be. You're on the right path. And when you feel congruent and aligned with your path, I mean, it's an amazing feeling. Then every moment of every day becomes a moment spent in the embrace of God.
Did you feel like the world is helping you on your mission?
Sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I felt like the whole world was against me. Um, the Yeah, it's funny. I did in the early days, and then when we started doing significant revenue, that's when the problems started within, people problems, or somebody wanting more than, business partners and stuff. And, it was the business side of it that really got intense. And, alliances that are formed between people. And it was a mess, quite frankly. And I felt like the whole world was against me at that point. And
Do you feel like money changed people or just reveal who they really are?
yeah, I think it reveals who they really are.
And how money influence you? Do you come from money, your family?
My family, my mother and my stepfather never made more than $30,000-$40,000 a year. She dealt cards at Harrah's Tahoe, and my stepfather was a bank manager. He was actually he managed multiple banks, but he quit that job because my mother worked graveyard, so she worked all night long. He quit that job and took a job as a cashier just so that he could be on the same schedule as my mother, so they could spend time together, which is, yeah, really cool. My real father, my birth father, was he's a realtor. Or he's not a realtor anymore, but he was a realtor. And the best that he did was like $100,000 a year. I thought that was incredible. That to me looked like something amazing. Later on, he would go on to do much more because he got into building and that sort of stuff. But when I was growing up, those were kind of the targets that I saw, but they weren't real targets for me. I never thought, oh, I've got to go do what my dad's doing, or I've got to do what my parents over here are doing. It's like, what do I want to do? And I'm sure I was influenced in terms of my choices by my parents' divorce, by my father. My father loved Elvis Presley. He loved Bruce Lee movies. And so as soon as I could get into karate, I had to get into karate. My dad loves Bruce Lee. I love, and I didn't even like the Bruce Lee movies as much. I just wanted to be special and have some special skill that I had. And so, yeah, and so I've done martial arts all my life. I've got a 5th degree black belt in Chinese Goju, a 1st degree black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I love it. I love the martial arts, and that's really helped me to keep my head in a clear place. It hasn't been sufficient at times, but it's really helped.
Did you meet also the martial arts, did it make you closer to your dad in a way?
We can have discussions about it now, because when he was a kid, he was in wrestling. He did wrestling in high school, and he was really good. And I wanted to do wrestling, but they didn't have it in Lake Tahoe where I grew up, so it wasn't an option. So I went to karate instead. And it gives us something to talk about. So now that I do jujitsu, which is more like, it's grappling, it's more like wrestling, we can have conversations and stuff, and he lights up with that, and it's good. They're points of connection.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
And the question was how money changed you.
How money changed me? I was probably a bit too cavalier, when it first started coming in. My ego was probably getting the best of me in certain situations. I took a lot for granted, because there was so much good that was happening. So I took a lot for granted.
Do you remember some certain things that now you understand that there was a mistake?
Oh yeah. I mean, excuse my language, but I've made lots of mistakes, tons of them. And, at one point I had a business partner that said, I need you to sign these documents for this. And I trusted him and didn't read the documents, and it gave the company away. So then everything started to be ripped apart. And so I made lots of mistakes.
So your partner literally took your company from you by...
He owned 30%, I owned 70%, and he was, he came to me and said he had some documents for tax purposes and for my child support. And so I just went and he said, sign here, sign here, sign here, sign here. And and some of them were backdated. So it made it look like I was selling the company piece by piece, which hadn't happened. That was me being trusting. That was me being naive. That was me being, having a lack of real attention to detail in that type of a situation. So I gave my power away, and I gave my power away to him. I gave my power away to other things. I mean, I was partying at the time. So I gave my power away to drugs, sex, drugs, rock and roll, like I was giving my power away a lot. And that's the recurrent theme, really, is where were the places where I gave my power away, and then how do I reclaim that and make sure that I don't recreate the same things over again. And so those were the lessons that came slowly, and they came in different ways in different places. When I lost everything, because I went from millions to penniless overnight. And so I moved to Bali. And it was because I had a conversation with Richard Branson at one point from the Virgin companies. And he said, boy, if the Virgin companies fell out from underneath me today, I just go move to Bali or something. And so when I lost everything, I picked up and I moved to Bali.
That's the time to move to Bali. No, same thing. I went through the same story, but I mean, I didn't lose that much in money, but based on a feeling, it was probably the same.
Something similar.
How did that happen exactly? Losing everything overnight?
Well, because once he had control of the company, he could do what he wanted. And I didn't realize that he was, slowly, and it's not about him, it's about me. It's about the things that I failed to do. So when I say this, it's just from he was turning people in the company against me. And I didn't realize what was happening. I knew something was up, but it was just strange. And by that point in time, I had trained up a whole training team that were doing all of my trainings and delivering them everywhere. And he started doing private deals with them behind the scenes and stuff because he had the contracts that said he could. How did it feel to go from that to that? It was devastating. It felt like torture. It felt like I was being, ripped out of my own skin. It felt horrific. And I've always considered myself a fighter, that you don't back down, that you don't stop. So I immediately became aggro and went after him. And then the more I went after him, the more they went after me and started hacking computers and all this crap, so the story kept getting perpetuated, and I was feeding it. So that went on. Like I was stuck for 10 years.
So you got stuck in a cycle of drama just because you weren't able to let it go?
Well, I couldn't, my mind was going, why would he do this? Why would why would this happen? How is this happening? And so, literally I got to the point where when you see the movies of the people that had the pictures on the walls and the yarn that goes between them and stuff, I had that. I mean, the whole house was that, trying to put together how the company was being torn away, because I was so confused by what was happening because I didn't know the content of the documents.
One thing I'm very curious about is that many people think that spiritual people, awakened people, they take things differently. Like everything that we're preaching, teaching, like if something even negative happens to you, don't ask why, just learn the lesson from it, be higher than this, see it from different perspective, takes things differently.
Yeah.
As a person who was spiritual back then, who spent 20 years, 30 years on that point, just teaching others, constantly working on yourself, you took it, as I hear, same with the question why, and putting the photos on your wall, trying to understand why it happened, like you were a victim in this situation.
Oh yeah. I also was looking for my cause in the situation. So I was going, how did I create this? How did this happen? But I was so stuck. And that's the thing, is that, and I always tell people, is that, sometimes we're so stuck in the problem, all we see is the problem. It's easy from somebody from the outside to look and go, well, just do that, because they can think circles around the problem, but because they're not in it. And, one of my students gave me a great saying when she said, you can't read the label from the inside of the jar. And I was inside the jar and couldn't read the label. And so all the things that I teach, or all the things that, all those principles, I was finding impossible for me. And I was searching. And so that was, when I came over here to Bali, I wanted to find sometimes if we're in the same school of thought, I can think circles around NLP at this point because I've been doing it for a long time. So I was looking for other methodologies to help in the healing. And I was, researching alchemy and researching, also the Kabbalah and researching all these different things to attempt to get my head in the right place, because I was so I felt damaged. I felt neurologically damaged. I couldn't show up in the same way as I used to. Like I just couldn't do it.
It's like the situation took a piece of you, took your power, took your.
Yeah, well, I gave it my power, or but I'll tell you, it's like if you drop a calculator and you step on it, and you can't compute the same way. And I didn't feel like I could compute the same way. I had serious PTSD. I was waking up in the night screaming. I remember my business partner at the time. He's like, "Call me if he was trying to soothe it over." And I called him, and I was screaming at him when I called him, and I was like, and so he's stopped wanting me to call him. But I was so tortured by what was happening that it was beyond belief. And my thing was that I had to put it right. I had to make the people pay for what, not from a revenge perspective, but from a justice perspective. And that was a big mistake, because I searched for justice for 10 years, and that's what kept me stuck. Because I was looking out there for the solutions still, instead of looking inside and going, how, maybe justice is me taking responsibility for all these things and looking at it. They say that karma is not linear. Karma, it's not because we did this person wrong here that we're going to get done wrong in the exact same way. It comes back in other ways,
It's very creative.
Yeah, it's very creative. I like that. So, I was paying a big price for the negative place that I was living in. And I even made a decision, which was probably one of the worst decisions I ever made, which was I'm going to give up on dreaming, because I was under attack from people that I was going after too. So I was feeding the system. I felt like I can't let them take my dreams away. So I'll take them off the table, and I'm just going to go for justice. And so I decided to put the dreams away, put them in a cabinet, and went for justice. The dreams didn't come back out until a couple of years ago. Yeah.
So in a way, you lost yourself with this decision. You decided to just give up on a big part of your personality, a big part of who you are, to focus on finding justice and focus on revenge.
Yeah. It wasn't revenge. It was justice. So it was like, I just wanted to put it right, what I deemed was right.
Very interesting detail that you changed what you deemed was
Yeah,
right.
what I deemed was right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't right. Like that, getting out of that situation was a good situation to get out of. I was at the time like a human doing, not a human being, because I was teaching all over the planet. We'd be in 3 different time zones in a week. I'd be in South Africa, and then Perth, Australia, and then the UK, and then to Melbourne, Australia, then over to Auckland, New Zealand, and over to France, and then back over to, and it was just, I lived on the road constantly. I was in 2007, 7 weeks in the United States was all I was there at my home. All the other time I was living in hotels and living around the world.
And you had a family back then?
No, I did get married at one point. That's so complex to undo all that stuff to lay it out is a bit much, but I did get married for a year at one point. I do have a 15-year-old daughter. I don't raise her, but she's beautiful and she's so smart, and I love her so much.
And how your business life, this kind of schedule, influence your family? Was having a family a part of your dream set at all?
It really wasn't. Back then it was expressing, and I think it came from my parents' divorce. I really felt like I needed to perform to be seen. And, if I could be like Bruce Lee, maybe I could win my dad's love, right? At some point, I think there's a little bit of that was, not even a little bit, a lot of that was playing in. And so it was more about being on stage. It was more about, being talented. It was more about expressing my unique talents in the world. And so that was the original drive. Later on, as I got more into NLP, I got more into transformation. It became more about, hey, let's change the world. Let's put these tools in the hands of everybody on the planet. And so the vision and the mission got bigger, which was amazing, because once again, I was listening to my heart, and making an impact. And for me, that's a sweet spot to live in.
Yeah.
You
That
know?
was everything happening at the same time and just making you feel fulfilled, I guess.
Yeah, and for me, I would have been very fulfilled if I wasn't. My problem was I also didn't know how to say no. There were opportunities. I'm like yes, 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 and then I was so drawn. I was just so overcast, and on all these things that there was no breathing room. There was no life for me, and so I drove myself into the ground from that perspective, and that was a mistake as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to you coming to Bali, absolutely devastated, ripped off, penniless, looking for answers. On what point you found solution? You found something that gave you those answers.
Yeah. Well, I did.
Did you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I did a lot. I did the local healing that you do, and saw healers that pour cold water on your head and make you laugh. I went to the waterfalls and did the purification.
Yeah. Scream in a waterfall.
Screaming in the waterfalls. Yeah, I did all of that.
That's necessary.
I did the
Healing.
breath work, and my friend Jeremiah Abrams, who's no longer with us, he was a Jungian analyst, and he lived out here, super talented therapist. But I went to him and I saw him for private sessions while I was here, and then he did the thing called the Love Journey, which was like holotropic breath work that he called something different, but. So we did this breath work and the Love Journey, and I started to put together pieces of my childhood and all these things, and in every type of healing that I did as I was going forward, and there were a lot more. I picked up a little piece of the puzzle, but not enough to set myself free. And so I stayed stuck in that for a long time. And it wasn't until I saw another therapist in Los Angeles, and they were really good at getting people to cause. And so I really got to cause about a lot of the things about how, and stopped talking about what other people had done, and we started talking about what I had done or what I had failed to do. And when I looked at that, there was no room in my consciousness for what somebody else has done, because I've got all this stuff that I've got to repair. I've got all these places where I've either fallen short. I can be loving with myself, but take a look at, here's the places I get to focus on. So I'm not looking at the stick in somebody else's eye. I'm pulling the log out of mine. And so once I did that, that really took me a long way. I also did some other things with emotional states. And I had a friend of mine, Patrick Holmes, who he helps people rewrite their story, and he helped me to rewrite my story. And it was kind of the culmination of all of these things after years of searching. And then at the same time, AI was becoming really big. And I thought, well, here's my opportunity. This is going to be huge. This is going to change the world. I have an opportunity to remake the business. I don't have to do it the way that I did, because there were all these trust issues. Who do I trust now? Who do I, there was a lot of stuff around that business, and a lot of, I didn't want to create the business like I did before. But now with the AI, it's like, okay, now I see something that I'm super excited about. We can, I see the future, and I'm sure that many people are seeing the future with this, but I see the future in terms of where things are going to go. And I think it's inspiring, and I want to be a part of that.
Before going to that chapter of your life,
Mm.
question that I really want to ask is that what was the lesson of this whole journey of losing the company, losing part of yourself, part of your personality, probably hurting your ego a lot? What was the lesson? Why it all happened? If you collected enough pieces to know.
Yeah, I have. I mean, it was all about giving my power away. And it became about me reclaiming my power. And reclaiming my power means taking total responsibility for everything on all sides, not looking at what other people are doing, thinking about what I'm doing, how I'm showing up, and then also reclaiming the power to go after my dreams. So it was about stopping giving my power away. Just stop it,
Yeah, that's what I heard as well, that all of the healing that you did, everything that you did back then, has just helped you to focus on yourself. Stop spreading your attention and your energy on other people and what they're doing, what they're thinking, and what they want, but focus everything on yourself. And that's the first step of taking this responsibility. Responsibility is basically our ability to handle the consequences of our actions. It's just to see what happened, what it cost, take responsibility for that and keep moving forward with the lessons that you learned.
Yeah.
And as you said that you've been stuck for a while in this circle of looking for justice, for any other person who, for whatever reason, is stuck in a similar circle of not being able to take responsibility, not being able to let go or just find a way out of the cycle, what would be your best advice?
Well, I mean, if it's for the same reason that I was, if they're looking for justice, justice is rarely served the way that we would want it to be served. Like I chased after that goal for a long time in vain, with the inability to really get that. And so sometimes, and I had people tell me along the way, they're like, Chris, just start again, just do that. And then it's like, no, this needs to be made right. And I could start again and just be torn down by them. So I had, formed this narrative in my mind that they were coming after me, which they were in the beginning. But I was perpetuating it by feeding the fight, by going after them. So I would say that like I lost all that time. I felt like I lost 10 years of my life, because I was chasing the wrong thing. So I would say, if you're in a situation like that, it might be a good thing to just let it go and focus on building yourself, because it is about building yourself and building that up. When you've got the focus on somebody else as being the problem, then you're looking in the wrong place.
Mm-hmm. But I also hear is building yourself. The essential piece of building yourself is probably remembering who you are. In your case, it was remembering your dreams, what was driving you in the first place.
Yeah, it kind of, sort of. I mean, the dreams are always there. I did set them aside. There's the remembering who I am. There are elements of that because I know that I'll think about that, and I'll bring forward the states from the past so I can feel them and remember them. And there's elements of that certainly build me up, but it's almost like discovering who I can be. That is what's most inspiring to me now. And I see bigger things than I would have ever seen before had I not gone through everything that I went through. That's opened my eyes to see. They say your eyes have to be trained to see our perceptions or learned perceptions. And so my perception began to expand again in terms of what I could be, what I could do, what I could have, and what I could create. And it was inspiring. But it only came after getting to cause. And then, quite frankly, when he rewrote that story, that was amazing. And so the first GPT that I created when I was working with ChatGPT it's called Your Hero's Journey. And it's all about, you just go and you tell it your problem, and it's a free one that I've created, but you tell it your problem and it turns out a whole new story for your life that puts the problem in context, of a greater level of success or you living your dreams. And it really helps. It helps to transform the narrative because we're so stuck in the narrative that we can't see our way out. And so a story like that really does make a profound impact. So those, all of those things led up to me discovering who I really could be.
And how do you rewrite your story? For anyone who wants to do this through ChatGPT or
You
themselves?
can go to, I've got a free app on there. If you go to Epic Life, Your Hero's Journey, on ChatGPT, you can go in there and just tell it your problem and it'll spit out a story for you. It's pretty cool.
Perfect. I'll leave it in the description.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Actually, I think I have, you know what? There's at thegiftofchange.com. Thegiftofchange.com, I've got that. I've got a better version of it where we actually go in and we take a look at the story before we send it back to you. So that's a place to go too.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to leave all the links down in the description for those who really want to rewrite their story right now, really wants to receive the different perspective of probably their past and their future of how things could be in a different way.
It's pretty powerful.
Yeah. What I've also noticed, coming back to that chapter of your life, right? We're not done with it yet. I really want to squeeze all of.
Right? Yeah, you're like,
I really want to dig deep, and I really want to squeeze all the wisdom that you received back then, because I keep hearing it over and over again. Successful men sitting in this studio in front of me and telling me pretty much the same scenario, that when I was in my peak, I was doing drugs, partying. I was having all these destructive behaviors. Probably right now, analyzing it after years after that moment, they were saying like I was having my focus in all the wrong places. So how do you find that this correlation between being a successful man, achieving things, following your dreams, following your path, and at the same time destroying yourself, like physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? How does it two of the things combine? How do they come up together?
Well, I mean, one way is that, a lot of the people that are successful in worldly terms, if you want to look at it from a financial perspective, a lot of people are that type A personality that push to an extreme more than other people would normally push. But then what happens is, if we're pushing so much, our internal world becomes intolerable, because we become a human doing rather than a human being. And when we have an intolerable internal world, we'll act out in different ways through drugs or through television or sex or whatever it is that people do, alcohol, gambling. People act out when the internal world is intolerable. And so for me, discovering who we are and going back to, as you had said, discovering who we are in relationship to the world, in relationship to people, and taking time in the beingness. That's the antidote for that. And that's what I got when I came to Bali, was a lot of beingness. I didn't have the stress that I had back out there.
All the doingness was taken away from you. So
Yeah,
what's left?
yeah,
is just
right.
beingness.
And sometimes Bali internet goes down. There's a Wi-Fi is down. Oh, there's a power outage, and then it's just like,
yeah, only thing you can do is just go and scream in the waterfall.
yeah,
No business to be done. That's it.
that's true,
That makes so much sense.
right?
Yeah, I've never found myself looking at the sky for so long. For no reason.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's frustrating sometimes, the upload speeds of videos and stuff, and
Yeah, for sure.
but it's still paradise, and it's still, there's magic to Bali. And I mean, that's why we're here, I think.
So that was a part of your solution, a part of the journey to leave the destructive behaviors. And
yeah. No, I went to rehab. I went to Betty Ford, and it was interesting, because it kind of, once again, it's like a two-sided coin. Part of me, there was the appreciation of it, but at the same time, it was my business partner that talked me going in, and then he split the company up and sold off the pieces while I was there. So I was in Betty Ford, and I actually really enjoyed it. When I checked in, I was like, yes, this is great. I can get 2 months.
That's the vacation I deserved.
Yeah, exactly. I
after
couldn't
years
get a
of hard
vacation. I tried. I went to Canyon Ranch. I went to Miraval. I went to all these spas that, were just to try to reset myself. And then finally I found myself at Betty Ford, and I had a great 30 days there. And then I ended up staying for 30 more, and but then when I came out to find that, everything had been torn apart and sold off. And so it was very fascinating period of time, but I learned a lot there. I learned a lot about reparenting myself and growing myself up again, and those types of concepts. And I read like crazy there, probably in an addictive way, which they would have knocked, but that's what I did. I decided I'm going to buy 30 books. I'm going to read these books while I'm here, and I'm going to nail all the problems that I have. Right. So, so I learned a ton there. And I'm grateful for all of that. I'm grateful for, the 12-step groups that I'd go to. And I went to every type of 12-step group you could possibly imagine. I ended up at Workaholics Anonymous. And when I was there, nobody showed up because they were all at work. It's true. And I volunteered to be the guy that welcomed new members on board, but then I couldn't do it because I was busy working. It was just like, it was kind of yes.
The world of absurd.
That was pretty funny. That was a funny experience. But they had some great principles and things that helped me to release attachment to things and different ways of looking at.
What's the principles that you still remember?
One of them, that they said that, life is like a garden, and you can't go in and will a tree to grow to a certain size or make it happen through the force of your willpower to that it grow in that way. But what you can do is you can work with it, and you can nurture it, and you can water it, and you can, it's like a bonsai tree where you can trim that tree to create the ultimate garden that you want to create. But it's a doing with process. It's not a willing into creation process. And when I started looking at building my business in that way, it allowed me to release a lot of attachment to the way that I had been doing things, and that's why I said before that I had intense anxiety, but that anxiety was because I had such attachment to everything. Attachment, this has to be that way, this has to be that way, this has to be that, and I'd get worked up. And in fact, if I look back now, like I'm fairly certain that the anxiety preceded all the other problems. So it was the anxiety that was causing me to act out in ways that were not useful for me. It was the anxiety that was, the anxiety even caused problems with my business partner because he didn't want to deal with my anxiety on a daily basis. So, and I'd be calling him up anxious about something. So that has disappeared, which is fantastic. Like I don't experience that anymore.
It disappeared because why?
I think the sum total of everything, and so I can't say it was one thing. It was all of those things, the taking responsibility, putting things in context, all the Bali time, all the different healing sessions that I went to and stuff, and then coming back again, being here now, all of it. So I don't, and I use supplementation and stuff. So I'll take like ashwagandha and that type of thing. But I'm very relaxed now. I don't have the chronic anxiety that I once had. And so that's probably the biggest gift. And it was probably the biggest challenge back then.
Yeah. You only understand how wonderful life can be without anxiety when one morning you wake up just because you had a beautiful sleep, not because you wake up with all this anxious thoughts of the
Right.
day, of what you need to do, of what's heading in front of you. Absolutely, that's the greatest gift. And it might seem to people who watch us that after your one business crashed, you found your new passion and your new purpose like next day. But I know that there have been some time passed between those two moments. How much exactly time?
Well, for me, it was 10 years. Yeah, that's why I say I felt like I had lost 10 years of my life. And I go, Chris, come on, you got to come up with a better way to look at that. But it was 10 years that, because if I look back, even in this conversation here that we're having, I look back at all those different types of healing and stuff that happened over that 10 years. It wasn't such a loss of time, really, because it's a victory for me because, I'm 55 years old now, and I've got a ton of experience in the accelerated change tools. And and a lot of that experience came from my own suffering, came from overcoming my own suffering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I guess all this 10 years you've been on your healing journey while some very smart guys in some very smart places were developing ChatGPT.
Yes.
And this AI technology that became your new passion, that became your new inspiration. How that happened and what kind of business. We're finally at that point when you can
Oh,
share with all of us what kind of business you're building at the moment. For whom? What's the purpose? What's great about it?
yeah. Well, what I look at it is, it's like piloting super consciousness. You're learning, like when you learn how to use the tools of AI, and the tools that we have currently in the marketplace, which continue to expand all the time. But it's like you're able to expand your consciousness. I almost think of it as in a spiritual way. You can think thoughts that you never thunk before. That's what they said in what was that? The Wizard of Oz. I could think whatever, but but anyway, yeah, you can transport your imagination to previously unexplored places. You can conceptualize and build businesses faster than ever before. You can, any question that you have can be answered. You can get advice from the greatest thinkers of all time if you ask it to take on that personality. There's just so much that you can do with it. So when I think of doing it, I think I combine NLP with AI, so it's our own kind of augmented form of AI. And I think of the chariot card from the tarot deck, where you've got the charioteer that's driving the chariot, but there's no reins. And so it's like spiritual reins. It's like energetic reins. It's like, and that's what I kind of feel like when we're learning how to use AI to expand our own consciousness and to take us to more powerful places. I think of it as like being channeling super intelligence to create, what was never possible before. That to me is insane. The fact that we can, give a suggestion. Well, I call prompt suggestions sometimes because I'm a hypnosis guy, but we give it a suggestion and it to create a song in this format or that way, and then it creates it. I mean, that's amazing. Or to create a video and it creates a video, that's amazing. I mean, you combine that with Neuralink, which I'll never use now, but if you combine it with Neuralink, where they can actually control the computer with their mind, you're getting into, they put the chip in and you can control the computer, and the computer can create and go out and do things. I mean, it's interesting times that we're coming to, and so for me, the way I see the future is that it'll be like you can go into, like on Star Trek, they have the holodeck where you can go in and you can live an experience inside there with virtual reality and stuff. I look at it and you could go in and have an experience that completely shifts your consciousness and makes your problems disappear and brings you to an infinitely more powerful place in your own life. So I see the future as being like, almost when you think of Superman, he lived in the fortress of solitude, and his father, who had passed away years before, would come and could talk to him. Right? We're coming to an age where that type of thing can happen, and you can go in there and you can talk to the greatest thinkers of all time. And so that, to me, is what's exciting. That's and it's about mind expansion, but in the flash of an eye, like rapidly. I said when ChatGPT first came out, I said, it's not far away that somebody's going to be able to put their problem in, and a trance process is immediately created for them, a hypnotic process, in my voice if I wanted, or somebody else's voice, and that person's able to go through something that helps to repattern their consciousness like that when they just put in the problem solution, like that's infinitely more powerful than you would have in terms of a results perspective than you would have gotten in potentially years of therapy.
That's my question. Can AI replace
Oh,
life coaches,
100%.
therapists?
100%. But I don't think of it as being replacing right now. I think of it as being piloting. It's the person who can use AI will replace the others, because they're going to be able to get so much more done, and they're going to be able to create results with people like infinitely faster. And so that was kind of my thought process when I started developing all of our GPTs, and I've got like 300 or 400 of them now that do different things. And I've got one that, and then I'll stack them. So I have a stack that's a business building stack, and you go through these 10 GPTs, and by the time you finish them, when you can do it within an hour, you've got your entire business laid out, you've got your value ladder laid out, you've got your price points figured out, you've got your branding figured out, everything. And that took me 13 years to get those things figured out. For now, people can do it in a second. And then we've got another one that does just marketing and launches, and how do you launch something so you get high levels of traffic. I've got another one that creates presentations, and you go through a series of these and it gives you an incredible presentation that just knocks people's socks off. And then we have other ones that are transformational GPTs, like the hero's journey. I've got many like that you go in with the problem and it just, wipes the problem away and gives you a new way of looking at it.
Yeah, I think like one of the most powerful thing that ChatGPT offers is just different points of view. Not something that your friends or family can provide, but something that you could never think about, like something that's out of your range of understanding and seeing. That's very valuable.
It's a sounding board. Well, that's when I would teach NLP, this is the one thing I had with NLP, was that it was oftentimes branded as an all-purpose self-improvement technology. But really, when you went in, you would be taught tools to use from a therapeutic perspective. So you could do therapy or coaching with somebody else. And so the all-purpose self-improvement, it does up-level your mindset. It does give you new ways of looking at the world. It gives you incredible skills and stuff. But in terms of your own problems, oftentimes those weren't getting solved along the way to the level that they could be solved along the way. But now, because we have a sounding board in ChatGPT, I always said a person cannot long be their own therapist, because when you're stuck in the problem, that's all you see. But now we can get that sounding board to show us other ways of looking at it. And if it's been trained in the tools of accelerating human transformation, it does it at a much higher level. So it's it's very different experience than just going in and ask ChatGPT, hey, how do I handle this problem? It's multiple metaphors that are designed to create change at the unconscious level. It's got hypnotic language woven into it. So the transformational content that comes out of it is amazing, as well as its ability to really identify the problem and ask the right questions so that the right solutions are provided.
And when the real person step in and hold this process, you said that ChatGPT is not going to replace this kind of specialist, but those who learn how to use it will upgrade and just become more powerful. So when the role of ChatGPT finishes and the role of real human being.
How I teach my coaches is the way that I do it. So I've got coaches that work for our company, and then I've also got we've got other coaches that we train. So we train people in how to pilot the technology. And the way that I do it is like, let's say a client comes to the coach and the client says, my problem is that, I want to create, I want to find my soulmate, and like, I don't feel like I'm worthy and blah, blah, blah. Right. I don't mean to
Blah,
minimize
blah,
it.
blah, just
Blah, blah, blah. I
every
don't
day.
feel that.
Yes. I mean, go and deal with it.
I didn't mean to minimize it.
Sounds
No.
like a bullshit problem.
But they come in and they say they have this problem. Well, the coach can then say, they look at the list of tools that they've got in terms of all the GPTs that I've created for them, and they can go in and they can create a hypnotic session with one. They can create a hero's journey with another. They can create, and then the coach delivers it, right? And so it's delivered by the coach. The creation of the pieces happen by the ability to navigate the various GPTs that we've created.
So I guess the role of the person here is kind of like a filter, because another issue with ChatGPT or any kind of AI is that they give you everything in 1 second,
Yeah.
no filter. They literally give you tons of information, unlimited amount of information that can be overwhelming.
Right.
Like, and it can make you feel anxious, because if you ask, like, analyze me, my life, my habits, my journey, and ChatGPT literally gives you like everything that's wrong with you, it might feel like a lot.
Right. Yeah. No, that's the biggest, I find that that's the biggest problem with ChatGPT, is that people get overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Maybe even addicted into this, like, what's wrong with me more? Just tell me
Oh,
more,
wow.
tell me
Yeah.
more. Same as people get addicted to, I don't know, like spiritual things, healing journeys, matcha drinks in my special case, right? And tarot readers, the star stuff, human design, any other technology, that's any other tool that they hoping to find one solution in, like this magic pill that will help with everything, that will heal everything in 1 second. But
Right.
ChatGPT is just like tons of magic pills every second.
And then it's like,
just
but
us.
it's not a bunch of information that's going to change your life. It's going to be the application of that and
Yeah.
the integration of that.
Consistency, determination.
Yeah. And that's why our coaches, like, I always remind them, I say, hey, we're not just creating stuff from ChatGPT. I want you to do closed-eyed processes with these people to help them to pave new neural pathways of probability, so that they can be, propelled toward what it is that they want to create. And that integration, I feel, is super, super important.
Not only learn the information, because it's easy to absorb the information, to learn it. It's easy just to scroll your feed and just to learn all this little knowledge from here and there.
Right.
But implementation, that's what makes a difference.
Yeah.
Implementation, that what changes your life, that actually makes you progress. And implementation is hard. It hurts. It literally go in and live in your life in a different way and making different decisions every day and rebuild this road that you've been following your whole life, and make a new journey, make different exits. Like, that's the tough part, and ChatGPT is not going to help you with that, because he's not going to hold your hand. He's not going to check on you every day. He's not going to force you. Even if you ask him, like, be harsh on me, stop being such a sweetheart. Push me to the change. He is like, yes, sir, I will push you to the change, whatever you say.
Right. Well, I have I'm starting this new class. It's called the Marketing Engine Accelerator, and we do it over a period of 5 weeks. And it's a GPT stack where I'll take people through one GPT each day that we do it. And by the time they get through the full 10 GPTs, the last one is a coach that's been trained in all this stuff that we've created with the other ones, so that they can go in there and they say, okay, I've got a launch coming up for a seminar or a product that I'm selling or a service that I offer. I want to launch that. Take me through it. What do I need to do? And it will coach you, and then you report back to it, and it does tell you what to do. So I've got clients that do private coaching with me, that I'll take them through a stack like that, and I'll tell them to use that coach, and they're using it on a daily basis to help them know what to put up on their socials, to help them understand where they're going to get the highest leverage in terms of marketing what it is that they're doing, how to find joint ventures, writing all that, all of that sort of stuff. It creates in a format where they can easily use it, which is super cool.
So what's your vision for this company? What's your dream? I don't know. Where are you heading with it?
Right now we're doing a capital raise for for what it is that we're creating with the GPTs, and but the long-term vision is, everything that I painted out before when I said this is where we're headed. Like I want to, the integration of AR and VR, so the augmented reality and virtual reality, the integration of those things with everything that I'm talking about is huge. NLP was an incredible science for expanding consciousness. It helps us to take charge of our values, change our values, shift things and when we change who we are, the world around us changes. But now we can do it and expand it through the AI, so we can do it more powerfully than ever before, and we can get to the root of problems that we could have never gotten to before, and resolve them in powerful ways using the technologies. So I see that the future's so bright. You got to wear shades, but I see it going in the direction that I painted out, and I'd like to bring us as close as possible to that.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. A man on a mission.
There you go.
There you go. Amazing. Last question for today. Throughout all of your journey, you learned many lessons. You've been very high, very down. Like you've been on this roller coaster for a while. For anyone who've been listening to our conversation today and felt aligned with some part of your story or with all of your story, what would be your biggest insight that you feel like you need to share that can become someone else's shortcut?
In terms of turning things around, or in terms of making things the way, like whatever it is.
Whatever you feel like to share, you can share too.
Yeah, no, I think that, just listening to the voice of God within and understanding the bridge between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind is the intuition. So trusting your own intuition, and listening to the voice of God within to drive you forward, and take responsibility. Make sure you don't give your power away. Keep your power. Yeah.
I love it. Keep your power.
Keep your power.
Great. Thank you so much for today's conversation.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed. I also felt aligned with many parts of your story, and I got my powerful insights from it.
I love that. This
Amazing.
the blessing of the field we're in. Yeah.
We're both on the mission, a pretty much similar mission to make this world better and to make people more conscious, and to create solutions for them to rise to their highest potential, which is beautiful. I love seeing that. And thank all of you for listening to us today. I hope that you heard the insight that you needed to hear today, the phrases that you needed to get today. And follow this channel, write something that you think in the comments. I would really appreciate that. Look forward to new episodes with more interesting guests. And I'll see you in the next episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast. We're done.
Yay.
Wrap it
Thank
up.
you.